Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. So guys, Eddie Reynoso has confirmed that Canelo Alvarez will be fighting in Las Vegas in May and in the Azteca Stadium in September. I made a video about this yesterday that it could be Charlo and David Benavidez, and I stick by that. I definitely think it could be. I didn't actually see. I just saw a post on Twitter where they said that Charlo could be the opponent in May, and then in September it could be David Benavidez. But I actually then saw a quote on Boxing Scene from after I did the video about Eddie Reynoso actually not confirming that it will be Charlo and David Benavidez, but the fact that they're gonna fight in May, and then they're gonna fight in September. I think if they're going to fight in Las Vegas, you see, if they were going to fight Macabu, I don't think that's a Las Vegas fight. I don't know whether Las Vegas would accept that. A Charlo fight definitely would top the bill at Las Vegas. I don't think a Macabu fight does. I think if they're going to fight in Las Vegas in May, it has to be a big fight. It has to be a super fight. And Macabu, for me, doesn't fit the bill, to be brutally honest with you. So I don't see it being Macabu at Las Vegas. I can't see Canelo, because Canelo's fought, other guys, not exactly in Las Vegas. He's fought in other places. I just don't think Canelo and Macabu is a Las Vegas fight. I think Canelo Alvarez was determined to face Macabu. But I think the backlash from the fans, and I think the money that he was being offered for PBC, and I see a lot of you saying it's not about the money. I actually think it is. I think the money that he's being offered by PBC is probably significantly higher than anything he can make from Macabu, because how come all of a sudden it looked like Macabu was a confirmed opponent, then all of a sudden Charlo came into the reckoning and Charlo became a favorite for Canelo to fight next? Is because of the fact that I think Al Heyman has offered him huge money. Obviously, we there's not anything documented and nobody's come out and said anything, but there has been this $50 million, $50 million guarantee that's been rumored out there, which, by the way, there's no credible source proving that. It's just people saying that on YouTube and stuff. There's no credible source, and it's floating about on Twitter and Facebook, but there's no real substance behind that. There's no real credible source. But I think one thing we know that PBC have offered Canelo Alvarez a fight with Charlo, right? And for that fight, I think the money would be enormous. If you look at Eddie Hearn, he's also already offered him Bivol and Golovkin. So nobody's really come to the table with a Macabu fight. Nobody's really put an offer, right? The thing is, obviously, with Canelo and Macabu, Canelo's the one that's going to send the offer. But then he's going to have to find a broadcaster, because Canelo isn't aligned with any broadcaster. Which broadcaster is going to want to put on Canelo v Macabu? That's another thing you guys aren't thinking about. People say, oh, well, Canelo does huge numbers. Yeah, he does do huge numbers, and most broadcasters will. But would they really want to put on Canelo Macabu? Because Canelo's going to demand huge money. So, for example, if Canelo wants to fight Macabu on DAZN, Canelo's going to demand huge money. But DAZN are going to think and look at it and think, that fight's not really going to bring us any signups. That fight's not really going to move the needle. Because although, it's Canelo, it's against Macabu. It's like if Canelo fought Yildirim, PBC ain't going to offer him 40 million, are they? For that particular fight. Because they're going to be like, well, that fight doesn't really move the needle. The same with the Macabu fight. DAZN aren't going to really want to put that fight on their platform, because they're going to think, does that fight really move the needle for us? PBC are going to be like, Macabu, is that fight really going to move the needle for us? No. That's why none of them have offered him that fight. Although I don't know, is Don King aligned with a broadcaster? I don't think he is. Macabu, what channel? I think he was fighting on Fight TV in the US. So it wasn't even a one of the main broadcasters that he was fighting on. So the point I'm making is Canelo's not going to want to fight on some, he's going to want to fight on the biggest networks or with the biggest broadcasters, like your DAZNs, like your PBC, ESPN. That's where he's going to want his fight to be aired. So if those guys aren't interested in doing the fight, you see, a lot of you don't look at these things. You say, oh, legacy and stuff and Macabu, yeah. But PBC aren't going to want to put Canelo Macabu on. Neither is DAZN. Neither is ESPN, because they know it doesn't move the needle, and Canelo's going to demand a lot of money irrespective who he fights. But then what you got to realize is, are these broadcasters going to want to spend that kind of money? They're not. They're not going to want to do it, because they don't gain anything by a Macabu fight, because it doesn't really move the needle. It's quite a poor fight in the sense that it's non-competitive. Macabu has no chance in the fight. I saw Macabu. He looked terrible on the weekend. And he's got no chance against beating Canelo. And not to say Jamal Charlo hasn't, but there's a lot with the Jamal Charlo fight. Jamal Charlo's a name in boxing. Macabu's not. So Jamal Charlo's just a bigger fight. It's going to do more than 1 million pay-per-view buys. It's going to do, like I said, it's going to do huge on the gate. And it's a Las Vegas fight. It's a monster fight. Macabu's not. So this is the other thing you've got to look at. No one said or offered him a Macabu fight. I know that Macabu's not with Matchroom or PBC, so they can't offer it. He's with Don King. But the thing is, where's that fight going to be aired? What broadcaster is going to take that fight? That's what you got to look at. See, Canelo's going to be looking at all those things. That what broadcaster is going to be interested is like, what broadcaster is going to be interested in that particular fight? Because if I'm honest with you, I don't think it moves the needle at all. I don't think any broadcaster would be interested, irrespective if it's Canelo. I don't think they're going to be interested in putting on that fight, because they're going to think that fight doesn't really do a lot for us. Whereas a Charlo fight or a Bivol fight, those fights do. So that's the other thing that Canelo's got to take into consideration. And I think that's the other reason why, Eddie Reynoso started looking at Jamal Charlo, because they probably think Jamal Charlo is a big name and it would do a huge numbers on pay-per-view, and it'd make a lot of money for Canelo. Listen, a lot of you keep saying Canelo's going to make a lot of money, and yes, Canelo at this point doesn't really need the money, but you guys think that. We don't know what goes through Canelo's head, right? If someone's offering him 20 million for Macabu and 50 million for Charlo, I can guarantee you he's not going to get 40 million to fight Macabu. There's no way that fight he's going to be able to make 40 million from it. I'd be surprised if someone offers him a guarantee of even 30 million, 20 million, because that fight's not that big at all. Irrespective of his Canelo, I don't think even the pay-per-view numbers would do great. It's like if Canelo fought Yildirim, that must have been pay-per-view, right? Or sorry, that was on DAZN. Right? That was on DAZN. But now imagine if that was on pay-per-view. How many numbers would Canelo and Yildirim done? I can guarantee he wouldn't have done 800,000. If he did 800,000 with Plant, which was an undisputed fight against an undefeated champion, Yildirim, who a lot of people thought was a very poor fighter and a cherry pick, right? That's what people said, even though he was mandatory. What numbers would that have done? Not very good. So this is but the fact is that it was on DAZN, and DAZN's not a pay-per-view platform. So for me, I think that's what's probably changed Canelo's and his team's mind, is the fact that Charlo, it's a tough fight. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a cherry pick. It's not a cherry pick, but I think Canelo wins comfortably against Charlo, but it's a big money fight. And as Eddie Reynoso pointed out, it's the best business move right now. It's the best move to fight Jamal Charlo. That's what Eddie Reynoso said. It's the fight that makes the most sense. Go onto Boxing Scene and see what Eddie Reynoso said. It's the fight that makes more sense than any other fight. And he's spot on. It makes more sense than any other fight. Eddie Reynoso and Canelo, they're very smart people. They're very, very smart people. They know that fight makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of dollars. It makes a lot of money. So Eddie Reynoso and Canelo are a very smart team, and I think that's what's probably changed their mind. And listen, Canelo's a fighter. He likes the limelight. He wants the big fights. See, a lot of you keep talking about legacy and him becoming a 5-division world champion in Macabu. Macabu's not going to move the needle. It's not going to be a fight which most of the broadcasters are even going to take. Like I said to you, who's going to be willing to take that fight? I don't think anybody. Nobody none of the mainstream networks have offered that fight. Well, they haven't got Macabu, so they can't offer him. But Macabu, what broadcaster was he fighting on? Fight TV, I believe. So Canelo Alvarez he needs to be fighting on a ESPN, or he needs to be fighting on DAZN, or he needs to be fighting on PBC. You know, that's where Canelo needs to be fighting on. And I think that's probably why that Canelo Macabu, and I don't think I don't think Canelo of recent has been getting paid a lot of money. You know, it would be interesting to know how much he got paid for Yildirim. But we know that for his big fights, like your Billy Joe Saunders, your Callum Smiths, and, you know, you're against the champions where they were seen as top fights, Canelo got paid a lot of money. But for Macabu, will he get the same kind of guarantee? See, why? Look, if someone offers you 20 million to fight a cruiserweight champion, or 50 million guaranteed to fight Jamal Charlo, what are you going to take? 50 million, irrespective. Look, we keep saying, well, Canelo's got a lot of money, and that's irrelevant. At the end of the day, we all look for the best deals for ourselves, irrespective of how much money we got. I don't think Canelo becoming a cruiserweight champion is that important like some of you seem to think. I reckon the reason why some of you are saying it because that's what you want to happen. You want him to become a 5-division world champion. I don't think Canelo really cares that much about it. Because if he did, you know, the Macabu fight would have been signed and sealed a long time ago. If he did, then then this mandatory would have been given step-aside money, right? And Canelo would have fought Macabu. Maybe that's the mandatory thought he would beat. You know, maybe the mandatory wasn't willing to step aside because maybe the mandatory thought, I will beat Macabu and then I'll get the Canelo fight. We don't know how he was thinking. But if Canelo really wanted to fight Macabu, then that fight would have been signed and sealed, in my opinion. But I think Canelo's, you know, probably had his head turned by some of the other lucrative offers that have come in. And I do think that he's going to fight Jamal Charlo next, irrespective of whether some of you like that decision or not. I do think that's probably going to be the next fight. And I think it's a fight, as Eddie Reynoso, the manager and the trainer of Canelo Alvarez, said, it's the fight that makes more sense than any other fight right now. You know, that's the fight that makes sense. That's the fight which a lot of people want, you know. Majority of the boxing fans want Canelo to fight Jamal Charlo or, you know, those guys, irrespective of whether those guys bring anything to the table in terms of a belt. You know, here's the thing. A lot of you keep saying, well, oh, none of those guys have got belts. What's happened to the Marvin Hagler days when Marvin Hagler defended his belt so many times against the contenders? Like Steven pointed that out on the live stream. Why is everything nowadays become about belt, or moving up 2 weight classes, or moving up there just to fight for a belt? Why is that become? Why can't people stay in one division and defend their title? Look, Gennady Golovkin defended his belt had record number of times. Bernard Hopkins did the same. I don't see what the problem is with fighters doing that today. Why can't fighters stay in one weight division and defend it? There's nothing wrong with that. Especially Canelo's already a 4-division world champion. So you can defend your crown, you know. You can defend your undisputed championship of the world. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, so, you know, I think it does a lot more for his legacy, beating Charlo and Benavidez, right, than beating Macabu, you know. You know, I think beating Charlo and Benavidez, you know, then move up and clean out light heavyweight division. You know, that's what I think he should do. That's probably the best option. The Macabu fight is there, and he may take it. I don't think so. I just think that, you know, I've heard other people say that Macabu blew his chance. His performance was very poor, and I just don't think people will be interested in that anymore. Just because if Macabu looked sensational, you could have made a case for it. People still wouldn't have been happy, but you could have made a case for it. The fact that Macabu won a razor-thin fight, and probably a fight which some people thought he lost, I just don't think he warrants or has earned the shot against Canelo. You know, he hasn't earned the shot, in my opinion. I feel like you need to have something about you. You either need to be a huge sell or you need to be a name in boxing. Yeah, champion, but I just think he doesn't have a lot going for him, Macabu, to be honest with you. And I think the money that Canelo will be offered for the Macabu fight is nowhere near the money he'll get offered for the Charlo fight. And although I don't think Canelo at this point really like the money isn't the be-all and end-all because he's got so much, it still plays a big part. Because if someone's offering you 20 million for one fight and someone's offering you 50 million for one fight, you know, Canelo's a prize fighter. He's a prize fighter. He's going to take the 50 million, especially when he knows that that's a fight that he's quite confident he'll win. You know, you have to take those big offers. Jermall Charlo would probably be Canelo's highest payday. So it'll be crazy for him to kind of not take that fight, irrespective of how much money he's got. If someone's offering you your highest payday, you're going to take that. So that's just the way I look at it. But leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. What do you guys think? And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.